Picture this. The journey ahead starts here together, and together we can build a brighter future. You are listening to Illuminating Hope, a podcast of Hope House. Welcome to Illuminating Hope. I'm your host, Tina Johnson. Today, I get to interview Sadi Geier again, our youth prevention specialist. Hey, Sadi.
Hello.
Today, I want to talk about leadership, go over a few stats with you. How would you define leadership in the context of youth prevention work?
I'd define leadership as a group of students or a group of young individuals who are taking a stand to speak up for their peers or speak up for those around them, especially when it comes to topics such as youth prevention or domestic violence.
Which qualities of leadership are most important for teens to develop early so they can hone in on them for the rest of their lives?
I'd say honesty, integrity, communication, especially communication with the way technology is evolving.
I think another one too would be the way you teach emotional regulation and de-escalation of our emotions. There's nothing wrong with being angry or any other emotion, but it's really how you respond or how you react to those emotions.
Exactly. We try to teach that it's okay to feel what your feelings are. We just try not to let those necessarily hijack us or the way we process or execute our decisions.
What core leadership skills should teens learn to be able to build healthy relationships? The first one that comes to my mind is mutual respect.
Absolutely. That goes so far because when you have a mutual respect, you're able to come to the conversation more and understand where maybe each person is coming from or be able to have a healthy dialogue.
How can leadership training help teens set boundaries? Because I know when I was teaching teens like you're doing now, teens feel like it's almost a negative thing to set boundaries, or maybe you're going to offend or upset somebody when you set boundaries. How would you refute that?
I like to talk about boundaries in my workshops, about boundaries being our own self-made thing. They're not necessarily about the other person or wanting to hurt the other person, but we're putting those in place because we're trying to keep ourselves safe, both physically, emotionally, mentally. That's probably how I would refute that. It's not necessarily about the other person, it's what you're putting in place for you.
With all this information, how does teen leadership contribute to violence prevention?
That when we don't know what boundaries are, or when we aren't able to maybe put those up in place, or we maybe haven't learned things like emotional regulation or maybe a lack of communication, then those can definitely play into the not knowing how to handle a situation that may be bordering on violence. When we are trying to give these skills or help build these skills, it helps buffer that later down the road.
Can leadership skills help teens recognize red flags in relationships, and how so if they can?
Oh, absolutely. Even outside of just romantic teen dating relationships, even on like a friendship level or a peer level, hey, this is the behavior they're displaying. I don't know that that's congruent with what they're saying. That's a red flag. That's maybe breaking my boundaries.
Maybe if you could give a broad answer, how does leadership development impact self-worth?
I think the more you develop skills to become a good leader, the more confident you just naturally become. It may not always feel comfortable at first, or definitely not easy. I'm an adult and still sometimes learning how to become a leader.
Yeah.
But the more that you practice those things, the easier it comes to you.
How can we as adults who maybe aren't in the youth prevention space help those who are?
I'd say open or invite the conversation. Be willing to listen and to talk about it. Don't be afraid to dig deep into maybe the heavier topics.
Talk to me a little bit about the statistics that you've pulled.
So as February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, I have just looked a little into some of the statistics on how often it occurs in that demographic. And unfortunately, 1 in 12 high schoolers will experience some sort of physical or sexual abuse. To 65% of those teens reporting specifically psychological abuse.
And that's reporting, which we know that there are many
goodness.
teens and adults that don't report.
It's a worrying statistic, which is why we do prevention work, is to help give them a voice to be able to talk about those things they're experiencing.
And where do the statistics come from?
The one I just read came from Partners for Peace.
Another great resource course is Love is Respect. That's a great one if parents want to learn how to talk to their teens or just really be privy to what's going on. I know loveisrespect.org is another great organization that we can look for statistics.
From Futures Without Violence, 1 in 3 homicides in girls aged 11 to 18 are committed by an intimate partner.
That is a sobering statistic. With a statistic that's sobering, how can youth leadership programs create long-term prevention outcomes?
The more it's talked about or the more prevention spaces we create, the more those conversations are happening, which is reaching more youth to give them the tools they need or to give them the language for what they're experiencing, to be able to have a safe space to open up to talk about what they're going through.
Thank you for coming on the podcast today. I know a lot of these stats are so sobering, but that's why you do what you do.
Thank you for having me.